Ladies and gentlemen, today is April 12th, 2016, and this is the KNKL SHOW, episode 288, where we learn to be better artists. My name is Keenan Lafferty, and I would like to welcome you to a show where we are going to be learning about puppeting animations. As can be seen in my awesome sponsors for the show, the current ones as well as my amazing past ones, see all the cool flowy animations. We're going to be talking about how we do that in Photoshop, and we're going to be having a good time with that because there's a lot to explain. And I'm going to do my best. I'm probably going to be stuttering a lot, but we're going to get through it. But before we get into that, we got to take a stroll down the lovely lane because you guys have been being awesome and submitting your beautiful art. So if you guys would like to take a look at these for yourself, just type in that tiny URL /KNKL fanart. Go like the page, submit your art, get featured on the show, and most importantly, come get some cookies. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so the latest... Oh, and a special thank you to my latest amazing sponsor, Cody Turner, of course. And this is the man that we are going to be animating today. Okay, so here we have the lovely caricature. For those of you who don't know what this is what I do for my sponsors on Patreon. I'll have a link to that at the end if you'd like to get a caricature done and have it featured on the show. But today we're going to be animating it. We're going to be animating because I like to create these images, but then add just a little bit of spice to it, right? I'm a cook and I'm creating this amazing stew or this great soup, right? And the soup is okay, the broth is okay, but then we got to add these extra ingredients. Just a couple little things that are really going to set it off. So what we are going to be doing here is we have, okay, so here's where the stuttering begins. So here we go. So we have a flat image, right? And the first thing that you're going to want to do before you even open up the timeline, before you even open up anything to do animations, is you want to ask yourself, what are we actually going to be animating here? And for this, I decided that we are going to be obviously animating this amazing hair. And you can see, sorry, Cody, I decided to shave your head for a moment because we need to have all of our elements that are going to be moving separated out. That's step one. So make sure that you have everything on its own layer. And in this case, it's on its own layer group. See, in here we have two hair pieces, which are going to be moving together. And it will create a little bit of extra depth. And it's going to look freaking awesome. So, and then also in here, I think we have like a glare on the eyeglasses that is going to kind of swoosh across. Oh, not like that. The other one's going to swoosh across like that. It's going to create like an anime look. It's going to look really sick. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Okay, so now that we've gotten that stuff out of the way, let's talk about timeline. Now, what the heck is timeline? Probably none of you have even heard of this. Make sure that you are actually operating on the latest Photoshop version because it changes from year to year, so I don't know exactly if this is the way it's going to work on yours, unless you're working on CS6. Is this CS6? Whatever this one is. Whatever the Creative Suite one is. Creative Suite, or not Creative Suite. Creative Cloud. So timeline opens up a bunch of layers, and you look at this, and your mind is already starting to melt like mine. You don't know what the heck you're doing, but fear not, because I'm going to simplify everything, okay? So first of all, I'm going to tell you that everything in this group right here, we don't even need. We don't even need this crap anymore. So let's go ahead and get that out of there. And let's go ahead and let's begin. So all we need to focus on is our hair and our layers. Now, what you want to do is you want to first direct your attention down here, down below where it says 6 FPS. The reason why I have lowered this is because it's going to make for a better GIF, or GIF if you prefer the peanut butter pronunciation. But the way that you alter your frame rate is to go, you click this button right here, and then you go to set timeline frame rate, okay? And I think when you first open it up, it's gonna be 30 frames per second, way too fast. We don't need that crap. We're just making a simple animated Jiffy GIF, and that's all you need. But even more importantly, we're gonna need to alter some preferences, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go ahead and go into preferences, and then we're gonna go to, where the heck? Keyboard shortcuts. Or sorry, not preferences. Just go edit keyboard shortcuts. Okay, and then you're gonna have even more stuff to look at. And I'm gonna guide you. I'm gonna save you a ton of time right here, okay? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go down to timeline video. And then the things that you're gonna wanna remap, now these are the things that I've chosen for myself. You're gonna wanna remap next frame, I chose F6, and previous frame, F5, so that way I can just kind of switch through my frames really quickly. You'll see me doing that in just a moment. But more importantly, you're going to also click Trim Start at Playhead. I set this to control left angle bracket or right angle bracket, or left facing right angle bracket. And then trim end at the other right angle bracket. Okay. So those are the only things that you should need for now. And then click OK. Click OK. And then whatever things you chose to be your things that cycles through your frames, I want you to click on the timeline. See, for mine, it's F5 and F6. And you'll see it bounces this thing back and forth. This is going to be really handy for scrubbing through your animation. Okay? It's going to come in really handy in a moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the hair. Let's go ahead and discuss the principle that we're going to be talking about today. And that is these timelines here, or these little bars, these purple bars are going to basically create our entire, the principle that we're going to be working with today. So see how I moved the bar away from where the timeline is, or where the playback thingy is, right? And then once it goes there, it appears. Interesting. See that? So that is going to be the principle that we're going to be working with. Now notice if I duplicate that layer, right? And then let's move it up another frame. And let's go ahead and use that trim playhead, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this down to one frame. Now the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to, oh, actually I should have done it like this. Because of the way that it works, this is the way that I figured out how to do it. So you move one frame later, right? Because obviously you want the frame to change here. And then you hit Control and then trim the end of it like that, which was the Control facing right angle bracket. And then you hit the other Control right angle bracket, and then it does that. And what this does is it creates a single frame. Creates a single frame, and then we can move this hair piece, say, to another area. Okay, and then also you're going to want to trim this so that it becomes one frame too. So now check this out. See how now when we go between these two frames, the hair now begins animating, right? But obviously we're not going to be having Cody's hair pop off of his head. We're going to have it gently flowing in the wind. But this is just illustrating that principle, okay? We're going to be working frame by frame, duplicating layers. Each time the hair is going to change a slight little bit, okay? So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. I'm really glad this is working because I have tried to explain this a few times. This is probably like my 5th take doing this. And it's driven me crazy. Crazy. This is really hard to do. And I doubt that you'll be able to find a more concise tutorial. I don't know. Actually, there's probably way better tutorials online. But you're not going to find one just quite like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into that. And rather than doing it this way, I'm going to actually start with the big hair piece. I'm going to start with the big hair piece because that's going to really set things off a little bit easier for us. So let's go ahead and go here. Let's go ahead and trim that down to one frame. And let's go ahead and duplicate our hair piece, okay? Let's go ahead and trim that and move it back one. All right, so we've got these two things here. I'm actually just gonna leave that like that. Okay, so we've got two hair frames. So this next hair frame, what I'm gonna wanna do is there's two ways that you can go about doing this. And I like to think of it as hard and soft distortions. Okay, so a hard distortion on this piece, you're going to do by hitting Control-T, and then you're going to right-click this area, and then you're going to go to Warp. Okay, that gives you this really cool grid that then you can easily go in there and just like slightly start warping things. But and this does work for some things, but you can see how once we start putting in way too much distortion, it starts pulling the hair off of Cody's head. And that's not okay. That is not okay. So for this, we're going to rely on a soft distortion. Soft distortion. And we're going to go to a liquefy tool, okay? Oh, and I did that way too quick. The way you get to liquefy is you go to filter, then liquefy, okay? And then check this out. You can begin moving the hair. You can begin moving the hair with a soft distortion, okay? And let's see here. Okay, cool. Now what we want to do is make sure you deselect show backdrop. And then we're going to go in there and we're going to begin moving things very, very slightly. Very slightly, because this also goes into something called ease in and ease out, which is an animation term, okay? Basically, it means when you start an animation, you want to not do too much. So take a look at that. We just did a small distortion. Now let's see what's happening there. See how now we are beginning an animation? Ah, interesting. Okay, so let's go ahead and duplicate this layer. This is the most important thing, is that when you duplicate the layer, you want to duplicate that last one. You want to duplicate this one. You don't want to duplicate that one. You want to duplicate the one that you have already distorted, okay? So we're duplicating that one. And now we are going to move a frame later, and we're gonna trim it again. So control, then hit both of the right angle brackets. Okay, so you go right, left. Okay, cool. So now you have a new frame. New frame. Now let's go into filter, liquify again, and let's go ahead and distort it a little bit more. A little bit more. Okay, so there we go. Something like that. Okay, then go ahead and then go ahead and use your scrubbing tools to look back and forth. See, here's a good example of maybe too much distortion. This is possibly too much distortion. See how big of a jump that is? I think that's too big of a jump. So that's a good chance to, hey, use our awesome history tool, and let's try it again. Let's try it again. Go back in there. Just a little bit less distortion, okay? See, because what we want this hair to do is to go out, and then we want it to come back like a waving flag, okay? So it's gonna go out, out, and then do one of these things and then come back. So that way it can be a looping animation, okay? So let's try that one. Let's try that one. That's more like it. Cool. So we got some hair movement. Let's go ahead and duplicate this layer. Move up a frame, trim it, and let's get to it again. Okay, so now what we're going to begin doing is we're gonna start moving this hair slightly back. We're gonna start moving the hair here at the bottom back, because see, look at this. Like when we're moving the hair, you wanna like move the bottom first, then the top. And then as it comes back, you wanna move the bottom first and then the top. So the bottom's gonna start moving back this way, but this hair, the momentum of this hair is gonna slightly carry it back forward, okay? Or keep moving it forward. So we're gonna have something like this. Okay, and I keep hitting the wrong freaking button. Okay, so it goes out, and then it's gonna start coming back. See that? Very good, and then his hair disappears because we need to make a new frame. Boom. Okay, move up, trim it. Next up, and really this has to do a lot with, I've done this a few times, and it is a lot of trial and error. It is a lot of trial and error. And in some ways, you kind of are moving blind, like normally. Actually, I think there is a way that you can show the layer before. I think you can. Oh yeah, look at this. You can actually do this if you'd like to as well. Let's see. I think you, well, I guess this kind of works. You can use the, you can show the layer behind it or the previous layer in this thing. I don't even know exactly how this works. Just get rid of that. I'd say just do it this way, okay? So we're gonna keep moving that hair back. And let's see if this works. Let's see if this actually works. Let's see if that looks good. No, not exactly. So this needs to begin moving back. This top part needs to start moving back, I think. Needs to move back more. So let's try it again. Let us try it again. Moving this back, moving that back, move that back, move that back, that back. Cool. Yeah, that's what we wanted right there. See that? How it goes out and then comes back. Perfect. Now what we're trying to do is we're trying to get back to frame 1. That's what we're trying to do. So a good thing that you can do here is now you do want to go back to this original hair layer because this is our frame 1. Direct your attention down to the layers because this was frame 1. So let's duplicate that layer and let's move it up to the top. Okay, move it up to the top. And let's go ahead and take a look at how that goes back to it, how it translates back to frame 1. Okay, so see, this is our jump here. This is our jump. It's a little bit too far. It's a little bit too far. So the cool thing that we can do is we can actually take this layer and let's go ahead and bend it back, or let's bend it a little bit further to a midway point. A midway point between those two frames, which I think is right about there. Okay? Yep, there we go. Okay, so now check this out. So now we have an animation that we're ready to preview. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I think I just hit spacebar. Yep. So take a look at that. It's a little janky. Needs a little bit of refinement, but that is how I go about creating the beginnings of these animations. Okay? So let's go ahead and move on to the glasses glare, okay? Because that one's going to be a little bit easier. It's going to be a tad bit easier. And then I will finish this up and obviously have it ready for the next show. But let's go ahead and get over to the glasses. Let's do the glare, because this is a different type of animation, an arguably easier one too. So let's talk about that. So what we're going to be doing here is we are going to be working with position. We're going to be working with position here, okay? So what you want to do is you want to go to layer 23, which should be called shine. Let's call it shine, okay? We're working with shine, and then we open this up, right? We push this little arrow down, and there's this thing called position. And then on frame 1, I'm going to hit this little stopwatch, which then puts in a keyframe, okay? Now, for those of you who are familiar with Flash or anything, it's basically the same type of thing. You create one keyframe, and then let's say, okay, at the end of this animation, I want this layer to move all the way to the end of these glasses, okay? And then what it does is it says, okay, by the end of this animation, it will move through the glasses. Look at that, see? So now we have something that looks like this. But rather what we want is we want to make sure that it's moving through and then it's animating, right? But the problem is that we don't want it to be constantly moving through there. So here's a good example to that, or here's a good answer to that. So let's go ahead and move the glare off the screen in layer 1. Or let's move the shine off, right? Or I guess these are mixed up. The shine should be the thing coming, the bloom effect that's happening. In fact, I'll just call that bloom so we don't get mixed up. Okay, but let's talk about the shine. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the shine come through really quickly. So take a look at this. I took that keyframe, right, and I moved it right here. Actually, let's do this. I moved it right here so that way it comes up later, and now it has less frames to move across the glasses, okay? Now what the heck is happening there? There we go. Okay, so now we're gonna get something that looks more like this. Oh yeah, and we gotta make sure that we trim that. Trim it to there so that way it doesn't appear until then. So now we're gonna have something that looks like this. Much better. That's what I was looking for. In fact, I'd probably have it be even shorter. Maybe something like that. Actually, that might be too fast. Let's bring it back. Again, that's what's fun about experimenting with this stuff, guys. You get to figure that stuff out. The only thing that I don't like is in this frame, that little bit is showing. So actually, I want it to look more like that. And then it can even get to the point where you can choose exactly where it sits if you want to do like an ease in, ease out type of thing. So let's say that we wanted to have something like this. And then in this one, it's like here, right? Covering that entire glass piece. And then there. So it goes like that. Now take a look at how this affects it. That's a little bit more what I was looking for right there. So now let's couple that with the bloom effect, which is going to be another type of animation. It's going to be another type of animation. And this is probably arguably one of the easiest ones to do. And it's an opacity animation. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to hit that. We're going to go to the bloom layer and we're going to hit the stopwatch on opacity. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to lower this down to 0. Okay? Or rather, in this case, we want to start it at, because the glare is beginning right here. So actually, the frame before it should be 0. Then right here, and notice how I actually just moved to a different part of the timeline. And when I adjust the opacity, it automatically puts in a keyframe there. Isn't that cool? So that's another handy thing. You don't always have to hit like add keyframe. You don't have to hit the stopwatch every single time. So just moving to a different part of your timeline and then adjusting properties of that layer will automatically create a new keyframe, okay? So let's go ahead and lower that to 0 there. Let's go ahead and bring in some of this like that. And then right here, we want it to be nice and bright. Nice and bright. Actually, I want to duplicate this. Make it even brighter. that. Yeah. So now we have something like that happening. And then right here, we'll move that back to 0. Cool. So now we have, and that hair disappearing at the end is really bugging me. Cody, let's fix that. Let's not make your hair disappear there. There we go. All right, guys, so here is our prototype animation. And there we go. We have a little bit of waving hair, which is the hardest part to do. In fact, that's usually what takes me hours to do, just like kind of figuring that out. Well, maybe not hours, but like just a couple trial and error attempts to get that down. But see, the glasses and the glare animation looks really sweet. Much easier to do those position-oriented animations and the opacity-driven animations. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen. Ideally, I wanted to have this completely done by the end, but I figured, hey, you know, Cody, hopefully it's enough that even though you're not on the sponsors page, you are basically the star of the show. But yes, thank you to my sponsors, Laura Bashir, David Chiariello. People are amazing. Thank you so much for sponsoring the show, as well as the sponsors of the past. But before we go, I do have a very special thing for you guys, and that is the question catapults. Alrighty, so let's take a look at what we've got here. This one is coming in from the KNKL MZ. Whoops. The KNKL, well, that's how you get to the MZ. But this question is coming in from VSketch. And for those of you who don't know what the KNKL MZ is, that is a place where you can submit questions like this one, like VSketch. And I will begin answering them because we're not doing the live show anymore, so now I'm doing questions at the end. So the question coming in from VSketch is tips for burnout. And he or she says, when I don't get art block, I typically get burned out. I either have no ideas and don't feel like drawing, or too many ideas, try to do too much at once. Interesting. We're going to be touching back on that in just a second. And then don't feel like drawing. In both cases, I draw regardless. I just find my heart isn't in it as much. I've also tried slowing down when it comes to burnout, but deadlines. So everything that you have described, VSketch, is exactly why you get burned out. Is because, first of all, you don't feel like drawing, right? You're tired of it. You're tired of it. Or you have too many ideas. You have too many ideas, you're not focused. And so rather than do any of those ideas, rather than just pick one and focus on it, you just kind of say, I'm just not going to do any of them. And then the last one that you said is, in both cases, you draw regardless, but your heart isn't in it. And then that is a vicious cycle because it just swoops you right back to the very beginning where you don't feel like drawing. So that's when I say that the best thing for you to do is a couple different things. There's a couple different solutions here. First of all, the best cure for burnout that I've ever been able to find is actually just learning how to properly take breaks. And I told you guys this many, many times, but I learned this the hard way because working full time at Riot Games, I would sit in my chair for 8 hours a day, drawing on my tablet, right? Drawing on my Cintiq, which is already really bad for my posture because I'm hunched over like this with my neck out like this and I'm drawing like that. Then at the end of the day, I'm just like, my back hurts and I'm just like really like I'm tired physically, I'm aching physically, but even worse, the reason why that was happening was because I would be working on a splash image, and rather than working for about 30, 45 minutes, then taking a break for 15 to 20 minutes, right? And then asking myself, what am I trying to accomplish here? Am I actually moving towards a goal, or am I just being busy? Am I busy being busy, kind of running in figure eights? Am I rendering this thing out that maybe if I sat back and looked at it, I'd say, actually, I don't even need to render that, or hey, that could be the wrong material, or this actually isn't really that important because it's not even in the focal point. There's all these things that are possible solutions that you can't think about when you're in the zone. Think of it as you can't see the solution when you're in the frame of the picture, right? So when you're working on the picture, you're in the frame with it. You need to take a moment to sit back. You need to step back, look at the entire piece as a whole, and then you can go back in, focus, right? Focus on one. Don't focus on all the other things you have to do. Focus on one thing at a time. And then if you take breaks, then you won't get as tired. You won't get burnt out. So I hope that helps you out, VSketch. And with that, I think we're going to end it. So yes, awesome. Oh, the last thing that I will say, yes, thank you. Special thank you to Cody for being my latest and greatest new sponsor. If you guys would like to also become a sponsor and get an animated caricature done yourself and featured on the show, then just click right here. It'll take you over to the Patreon. You can find out more details. You can get PSDs from the shows, as well as one of these. They are limited spots as well. I'm opening up, I think I'm going to open up 2 or 3 new slots for people that wish to sponsor the show and get animated caricatures done of themselves. But if you want to go check out the details, and click on this picture. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end it, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you guys so much for joining me this week. Sorry I didn't do a show last week. I feel really bad about that, but I will make it up to you somehow. Somehow, some way, I'll make it up to you. So yeah, you guys take care. You guys have a great rest of your week. I'll see you next time. And until then, you guys take care.